back into the Sean podcast. Oh, is that fantasy edition? It's that fantasy edition. I'm the big Ush. The big Ush. The big Ush. Hey, Cat Daddy. You okay? I just want to make sure you're doing okay.
No.
You all right?
No, I'm gonna need you to respect my privacy in this time of mourning, as I dropped a very important game of the season to said Big Ush,
I just want to make
and
sure.
I'm not feeling good.
Just want to make sure he's doing okay. Now, no, I'm gonna start it with this. I'm gonna be nice and start this. We did play each other earlier in the season, and he won. It was a close game, and he won it. This one wasn't close.
Man, this is 100 points. You beat me by 100.
It was the most points. It was the biggest margin of victory on the week. He was one of the closest teams towards me on most points, and I pulled away from that. I don't think anybody can catch me there. So I'm riding high. I pretty much clinched the playoff berth. It'd take a lot to get me out. And you still have a chance, so it's okay.
Man.
Breathe. I mean, it's going to be nerve-wracking, but breathe.
I'm gonna have such high anxiety this week. It's not even funny. And you're sitting there breathing easy.
Hey. All right, jumping into it. We're going to go with the trust and don't trust receipts. And I'm going to go first on my trust. So, I had quarterback Matthew Stafford. I think that's a win. For sure. Then I had running back Austin Eckler. Oh, that's another win. You know, and you have Eckler on your fantasy team.
I do.
Didn't help you much.
No, he didn't.
Wide receiver Mike Evans. It's another win. And then I had tight end Dallas Goedert. Dang, that's a real win. So let's start all the offensive players that I talk about. Sean, how about your trust?
Trust, we got off to a good start. Kirk Cousins. Against the Lions, he goes 30 of 40, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did lose a fumble, so he got you around 19 points. So we're off to a good start, and that's where it ends. Because I had Joe Mixon. And what I said last week was the only thing that may hurt Mixon is if Cincinnati trails the Chargers early and they're forced to throw the ball more. And guess what happens? Cincinnati trailed the Chargers early. They were forced to throw the ball more, and it didn't help
not the only thing.
that at one point Joe Mixon had 10 rushes for 18 yards. So
what about that other thing?
You mean the fumble he coughed up?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Even without the fumble, even had he held on to the ball, it still would have been a loss because he only got 54 yards on the ground.
Hey, you don't know what could have happened. He could have mounted a real drive there.
He sure could have. Or he could have continued to do nothing because he ended with a 2.8 yard per carry average. So,
well, let's move on.
Please.
And you had the right idea. You were picking a 49er because,
Deebo Samuel's out.
Wasn't playing.
Yeah.
You just picked the wrong one.
Maybe it was a wrong one. Brandon Ayuk got off to a slow start. And then when he became productive, it just wasn't enough. He ended up with 6 targets, which don't count for anything, 3 receptions, 55 yards. If only he had been involved sooner by Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, but there was somebody else who was involved who was kind of a badass on Sunday.
What, Kyle Juszczyk?
I think his name was George Kittle.
You're about to say George Pickens. Yeah.
You know George Kittle?
Yeah, my number 3 tight end at the end of the season. Yeah, I remember him.
He didn't like that. He didn't like that designation.
He's like, I deserve to be number 2.
Just want to make it clear. In our particular league, we do have certain incentives for first downs and whatnot, and receptions and everything. His number 1 guy, Travis Kelce, And I'll give it up to him. Travis Kelce was the #1 tight end this year overall.
Mm-hmm.
My guy, George Kittle. George Kittle has been injured at times, and he blocks a lot. But this week, he has Travis Kelce on his team. I have George Kittle on my team. And the head-to-head matchup this week, what happened?
So my tight ends to trust was Mike Gesicki because he is going to stay on my list until I get it right. And what was really positive is that Mike Gesicki had 11 targets. Tied for the team lead. But he converted 7 of them, which is great, for 46 yards. And
So that's a loss.
And that's a loss. Now, if we're talking PPR, I may sneak a victory in there, but we're not talking PPR. Maybe next year we will. But right now, Mike Gesicki is almost like a guaranteed loss for me every week. So
Good getting on track. You're getting back on track there, Sean.
You're welcome.
Anyways, let's go to my don't trust. Don't trust. I got Josh Allen. You know something? That's a win. But the wind helped me out with that one. My next one, Cordero Patterson. He proved me wrong. Had over 100 yards total in this game, led by rushing and receiving. Next up, Jalen Waddle. Another one proved me wrong. Jalen Waddle had a game. 90 yards. Go ahead, go figure there. Next up, Hunter Henry. That was a win. I mean, he wasn't even one of the targets.
Well, I threw the ball 3 times. Come on.
So, how about your one?
Don't trust. All right. I had Joe Burrow going against the Chargers. Man, the Chargers defense brought the pain in this one. They got to Burrow 6 times. They picked him off twice. And overall, they forced 2 fumbles, one of which was returned for a touchdown. Now, that was the one on Mixon, but that's just their defense overall. Burrow got 300 yards through a touchdown. But he also...
What about what?
But he had 2 interceptions, and he had a lost fumble.
But what else did he have?
What do you have?
He had like 40 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Or no, not 40. He had a bunch of yards on the ground and a touchdown, a rushing touchdown.
Oh, he did, so that would actually be a victory for me.
No, but Burrow's a don't trust.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I had my quarterback. Yeah, that's right. He got the touchdown on the ground. Yeah. No, didn't win that one. Without that touchdown, I would have won.
Yes, but he did get that one.
But he did, because he couldn't give the ball to Joe Mixon. Fine. Next up, Najee Harris. Man, it was tough sledding for Najee Harris.
Hold on. You also got lucky. It could have been worse because one of them interceptions was actually a touchdown to Jamar Chase. So we're not going to focus on that, Najee.
Najee Harris relied on volume in this one. 21 carries, 71 yards. He also had 5 receptions for 36 yards. That's giving about 10 points, which is pretty good. So, volume. Stephon Diggs at 1. Now, he ended up with 4 catches for 51 yards on 7 targets because for some reason Josh Allen was throwing the ball. But the game plan for both teams was greatly affected by the weather, and I'm willing to take the loss on this one because those numbers were really good for the conditions they played in, so I'll take that loss.
No. You get the win because it does not matter. You play in what you play. But you were so lucky because there are 2 touchdowns that Stephon Diggs could have had if it wasn't for the weather. One was an over-shoulder touchdown that would be easily caught by Stephon Diggs if he could track the ball. And the other one is a back shoulder fade where the ball just whipped away from him.
Yep, so I'm willing to take a loss on that one if it comes down to it.
No. You got that win. You play in the elements you play in. It's just like Happy Gilmore. You play where the ball falls.
You sure do. My tight end was Noah Fant. Nailed it. He still doesn't perform well against Kansas City. 4 catches, 33 yards, 0 touchdowns. And on a good note.
All right, next up, we got our trust and don't trust for this week. My trust. QB. You'll be happy about this one. It is Aaron Rodgers versus the Bears. And I'm saying this because Aaron Rodgers said it with his own words. He owns them. Next up, I got Javonte Williams against the Lions. Yeah, he should run wild. KC's defensive line is better than the Lions. Next up, I got Amari Cooper versus the Washington football team. I know it's on the road, but look at the numbers. Amari Cooper tends to own this team. And then I got George Kittle versus the Bengals. George Kittle is Jimmy Garoppolo's safety blanket while Deebo Samuel's out. Sean, who you got?
Quarterback to trust, Dak Prescott. The Cowboys are becoming healthier, and they're getting a generous Washington defense. Running back, I have Alexander Madison going against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been giving up a lot of yards on the ground, and in 3 of the past 4 games, they've given up multiple touchdowns to the running back position. I like those odds. Also in the Thursday night game, I have Deontay Johnson as my wide receiver to trust going against Minnesota because you can't trust Minnesota's secondary, and Johnson is a target hog who's been averaging close to 13 targets per game over the last 4. And my tight end to trust is the same as yours, George Kittle going against Cincinnati, a Bengal team that seemingly has no healthy linebackers to cover them. And it is possible that Deebo Samuel comes back. At least Kyle Shanahan wants that, but we'll see.
All right, next up, my players to not trust. This one is a controversial one for my QB. I have Lamar Jackson versus the Browns. This Browns team is coming off a bye, probably getting a little bit healthier. And, I mean, this is good defense, and Lamar has not been great lately. Next, I've got James Robinson versus the Titans. Titans are a good defense. James Robinson has not had the best couple of weeks. Next, I have Elijah Moore versus the Saints. Saints have a very good defense, especially in that secondary. And then I have Dalton Schultz against the Washington football team. Where the Washington football team is strong is with these linebackers. They're very fast. We'll see how it goes with Dalton Schultz. Sean.
Quarterback not to trust is going to be in the Thursday night game, and surprisingly, it's not Ben Roethlisberger. It is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins will be missing Dalvin Cook. He'll be missing Adam Thielen. Yeah, he's got Alexander Madison. He's got Justin Jefferson.
He's got Osborne.
But you need all the weapons you can get going against this Pittsburgh defense. And I don't have high expectations for that offensive line going against TJ Watt and company. Running back not to trust is David Montgomery going against Green Bay. I don't believe the Packers have allowed 100 yards to a single rusher this season, and I don't think it starts now. I imagine the Bears will be playing behind for most of the game. Wide receiver not to trust, Marquise Brown going against Cleveland. Last time they faced 2 weeks ago, Marquise Brown had 8 receptions for 51 yards on 10 targets. We may see much of the same this week as Cleveland comes off their bye, and my tight end not to trust is Gerald Everett going against Houston. Last week he had a few drops, lost a few fumbles against 49ers. He ended the game with 4 catches for 7 yards. If I were Pete Carroll, maybe we avoid him this week because you're going against Houston, and you may finally be able to run the ball.
All right. That is all she wrote, folks. I do want to say this is playoff push time. So for all y'all who made the playoffs or are about to make your playoffs or could possibly make the playoffs in your leagues, kudos to you. Hopefully we helped in some small way or some large way. Give us credit. For all the people who aren't making the playoffs, sorry to hear that. There's always next year, people, and I mean, The work can start at any given time, any time that you think. And that's what I'm about the prefix. Next week, we're going to talk about players that you should possibly be targeting in next year's draft. Players that may not have performed amazing this year, but could possibly be looking at a breakout season next year. All right, Sean, Cat Daddy, anything left to tell the people?
Hopefully you didn't listen to me this week. Yeah.